Hello and welcome to another episode of Fractional Impact. Today we're speaking to Abe Weiser about why traditional recruiting agencies fail startups and what works instead, the biggest mistakes founders make when trying to scale teams quickly, and how to build a recruiting engine that grows with your company. Abe, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. No, I appreciate that. I'm Abe Weiser. I have over a decade of experience hiring really top teams within many major high growth tech startups. And I'm now building off of that experience, building a centralized recruiting hub to help startups hire effectively and efficiently, and most importantly, cost effectively.
Awesome. Excited to go a bit more into that in a second. Gianna, would you like to introduce yourself also?
Yep, my name is Gianna. I'm part of the Fractional Clients team, and I'm excited to get into all of this today with you today, Abe.
I'm excited as well.
So tell us a bit more, Abe, about your career and what you've been doing and what you're doing now with the company that you're at.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll just start off. Right now, I'm currently with Elly. We're building this centralized recruiting hub, and so as I mentioned before, the vision here is that's using AI tools to enable recruiters to become super recruiters and build this centralized recruiting hub for teams that need help with hiring. So my past experience, most recently before Elly, I was the head of talent acquisition at Splash. There we grew from, I would say, a smaller early stage startup to an enterprise level company, all the way through our acquisition by Cvent, one of the largest players in the space. So during that time, I've learned a lot about building recruiting teams from the ground up, twice actually, pre-COVID and post-COVID, and really being able to then take that knowledge of how to hire effectively and efficiently, really hiring A players, and now creating a centralized hub to be able to help startups find and hire the talent that they desperately need.
That's awesome. When you were at Splash, I know that you hired more than 100 people in a year. How did that look logistically, building that system and managing that kind of volume without sacrificing the quality of the hires?
Yeah, it's a great question, and a little fun tidbit. The year that we hired around 100 people at Splash, the team was just myself. So it was post-COVID. We unfortunately had to let go of the entire recruiting team other than myself. And then after the COVID, there was a massive boom in demand for hiring. And so it was like, hey, Abe, we need you to do this. So what was exciting and interesting at that moment was that before then, I built a lot of infrastructure in place of building scalable, repeatable processes, which would scale, let's say if you're hiring 1 to 2 people, all the way to 100 people. And the main thing was alignment at the beginning and creating a process to remove any bottlenecks so we could make hiring more quickly and making smarter, stronger hiring decisions fast. And so during that time, I actually hired a recruiting coordinator, a couple of recruiters, as well as individually, personally, myself hiring 40 people within the first 4 or 5 months of the year. It was chaotic and fun, but having that infrastructure that we built out in the first place really made it as seamless as possible, going from a team of just 1 to having a team of 6 people, hiring 100 people to help grow the organization, and hiring really successful, great talent to really help propel the company forward.
It sounds like that having that structure set up in the beginning really helped you to propel forward. But were there other sorts of learnings that you took from that high growth recruitment period?
Yeah, alignment, and also working with the executive team, making sure that we're aligned in a more agile process, right? As opposed to kind of finding out after the fact, hey, we're 3 weeks into a search, that like, hey, this person that we're maybe gearing up to give an offer to, or we're excited about, saying like, hey, we're taking the company in a different direction. Having close alignment with the executive team and understanding the direction that we want the company to go in, we're able to then go and build out hiring plans and processes that really take into consideration what we're looking for the company growth. And so really having alignment at the beginning and then building out those scalable infrastructure really helped us be able to hire effectively and efficiently, which quite frankly, without having any major mess ups or anything like that, with any major balls dropping, like having to rescind offers or anything like that. So it was a really exciting growth period of time.
Nice.
What do you think made it better for Splash to have an internal team for that kind of rate of hiring versus just using an agency?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, there's two things here, or three things that come to mind immediately. First off is, right, candidate experience. Candidates really can't get a sense of what the company is like without having someone that's embedded and part of the team. And then on top of that, there's cost, right? So agencies typically, from my experience, traditional search agencies try to provide the least amount of impact and the most amount of billables. And so it's like, hey, here's a resume, and then kind of do with it as you please. Whereas internal recruiters, or quite frankly, recruiters in my kind of format from embedded hiring, we're there part of the team, understanding the company culture and needs, and we're there in those hiring meetings and post debriefs to really see where the friction is and what's needed to make sure that we're making effective hires. So at Splash at that time, it was very effective having your own in-house team. Hiring 100 people through traditional agencies would have been very expensive. But now with the current environment where hiring tends to ebb and flow at most startups, having a traditional agency is very expensive. Having an internal team sometimes could be almost I wouldn't say a waste of resources, but you might have times where you're not actively hiring. Having an embedded solution where a recruiter is sitting on part of your team, is ready to go and understands the company culture, that's really where it's at. Whereas we could kind of flex to where you need, right? If you're actively hiring now, we could hire 1 or 2 people. If you need to hire 5+ people, we have an embedded option where the person's working full-time embedded as part of your team. And then if you need to kind of slow down and ramp down on hiring, we're able to take the step back. And the idea is that by building this centralized recruiting hub, we're able to then utilize our resources and help other clients as well. So it becomes a win-win for everyone.
I guess for startups, they kind of have 2 or 3 options with recruiting, where they can use an agency, they could hire someone full-time, or they could hire someone like yourself fractionally. When do you think is the best case for each option there?
For sure. So there are different points. So it's really depending on your hiring plans and needs, and as well as the size of the team. So for example, most recently working with a startup that has 20 employees, right? And they're looking to hire roughly 6 people in a year. So hiring a full-time employee for those 6 hires could end up being a little bit more expensive and unnecessary. And then also that's like over the course of the year, maybe it could be front loaded, 3 people in the Q1 and then 3 people in Q4. So what are you going to have a recruiter do in Q2 and Q3? So there's that aspect of like, okay, hiring full-time at that point doesn't make sense. But you don't have any infrastructure in place for hiring. You don't have an applicant tracking system. You don't have built-out recruiting processes. So what do? Taking it on yourself tends to become overwhelming. For example, we just hired a couple engineers here at Elly, and we had over 2,000 applicants. And so without having a way to kind of process those applicants and making sure to see who's a good fit, you're kind of at a loss. So having an embedded recruiter such as ourselves coming in with the sources and tooling that we already have. So we have our own applicant tracking system, as well as processes already built out, right? Hiring kickoff documents, debriefs, all that kind of stuff. We come and meet you where you're at and really help you really evolve and grow the hiring process. And we kind of plug in when you need us. Let's say Q1, those 2-3 key hires, take a step back, and then Q4, jump in for those final hires. And then a traditional agency, I believe a traditional agency can be helpful at certain times. So for example, if you have already built out large recruiting organization and you're looking to do like a major push over one quarter. And so having the traditional agency throwing a bunch of resumes at you is usually the time when it's most appropriate. Other than that, though, I really think having an embedded team, you get a lot more value from and much more bang for your buck.
Do you think over the next few years, the whole recruiting agency model will start to decline a little bit in favor of the more fractional model, or do you have any predictions around that?
It's a great question. I'm constantly thinking about that myself. Right now, so just like, let's say I talk about the now, where market conditions are kind of a little bit volatile and companies don't know if they're going to, need to hire 10 people or going to hire 50 people or going to hire 1 person. So with volatility, you need kind of like, they call it recruiting as a service, or some kind of model where you can kind of step in when you need it and take a pause when you don't need it. And even for larger organizations, that seems to be the case. And what we're seeing is that historically, a lot of recruiters kind of join a company, and then the company downsizes and recruiters are first to go. And so building the subscription model really seems to be a really great fit for companies up to a certain size. And then once they're a certain size, having recruiters and then really being embedded in part of your team, and then being able to be creative to what to do with them during downtimes is also something that I see as their future. Traditional agencies, I feel like a lot of companies are going to be moving away from traditional agencies because, quite frankly, I think teams that need it are going to or teams that are in the position where they'll get help from a traditional agency. They're just expecting more for their money, as opposed to just kind of, here's a resume and kind of run with it yourself. It's like, here we need someone to kind of run the process with us and really kind of guide us and help us make a right decision, as opposed to just giving us resumes.
Yeah, interesting. With the kind of volatility of the market, that can lead companies to not be really sure when or how many people they should hire and that kind of thing. But I think something that's becoming more and more common as well as that is now companies maybe don't need to hire 5 people. They can hire 1 person and have AI do the rest, But of course, a lot of companies or a lot of founders or CEOs maybe don't know exactly what AI can and can't yet do. Do you think the whole AI thing is adding to that uncertainty and volatility of the market, where companies are just really unsure when and how many people to hire?
It's a great question. Like I would say we're in the early stages of AI, even though it seems super mature at this point, but we're still in the early stages of AI in terms of where AI can step in and help. So for example, at Elly, we're building tools to create these super recruiters. The idea is that removing the menial tasks from the day-to-day of a recruiter, and so they could focus on what they do best, right? Which is really building great relationships with candidates and hiring managers, as well as strategy. So I think that from AI, what we're seeing is that we're creating super recruiters who'll be much more capable and much more effective with their time. So I think, maybe that you'll need a little bit less number of recruiters on your team, but at the same point, you don't want to sacrifice the human aspect, because people are joining companies because they're working with people. And so if you lose the human aspect and you try to replace everything with AI, unfortunately, you're not going to have great results because of that.
Of course, yeah. So what is... On you go, Jenna.
Going on from the sort of human aspect side of things, are there any areas in recruiting where you think AI shouldn't replace that human touch?
Yeah, great question. So any basically face-to-face interactions with candidates, right? So the idea is that you're building relationships with candidates. And so the idea is that you want AI to kind of create my ability to build connections with these candidates. So for example, we have a note taker at Elly. We use that note taker to take notes during the conversation, which frees me from making sure oh, did I catch what you said? Oh, what was your compensation expectations? Right? It frees you from all of that, and it's taking notes for you on the side, and it enables me to focus on the conversation and really get to know and understand the person I'm speaking with. And so that's like an example where AI brings it to making it more human of an aspect. But one step back that I would say that I would be hesitant for using AI is that, say, for example, using AI to replace that connection with the recruiter and the company, either the recruiter and the candidate. So for example, let's say a candidate emails you with a question and having an automated AI response, which feels impersonal and also doesn't understand the culture of the company, right? So using AI to kind of supercharge people and create really these heightened levels of opportunities to create personal connection versus using AI to remove the human connection is something that I would stay away from.
I see. So do you see it as more of a time saver, or do you actually see it improving hiring quality too?
I see it improving results as well. So for example, as I mentioned, right, we hired recently at Elly 2 software engineers. We had over 2,000 applicants. And so as the sole recruiter in the company, working on the internal recruiting works, there's no way I could go through all 2,000 applicants and speak with everyone. And so the way that we use AI is to even go beyond the resume. So for example, you apply to a job and then Elly is able to send you a link for you to speak with our AI. That's not to replace the recruiter. It's to give you a chance and a voice beyond the resume. And then the AI is able to surface, let's say, right, of those 2,000 applicants, let's say even, I don't know, 30% are spam, right? So that leaves you a tremendous number of spam resumes to go through. If we could just cut that out, it gives me the opportunity to find relevant candidates more quickly and really help me focus on that personal connection of speaking with people that are a great fit for the role. And so, for example, we used Elly for this software engineering role. It was able to kind of highlight someone who, quite frankly, I didn't see their resume yet, but Elly is like, hey, this person is, a great match for the role. I ended up speaking with them and we ended up hiring them. So that's an example where Elly's AI really helps us kind of cut through the chaos and cut through the noise and really give people a chance to be considered in the process, as opposed to kind of just slowing things down and making it much more harder to find, relevant people.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of things on the candidate side around using AI to improve their resume and things like that. If you have so many companies using AI to hire or recruit, and you also have so many candidates using AI to apply, how do you stop the whole recruitment game from just devolving into an AI versus AI battle?
Yeah, no, I have moments where I think right when I post the job, I get messages in my inbox, hey, I'm interested in this role. Like, it's clearly kind of like pre-built out, right? And so it creates a lot of noise. And so that is going to be a challenge with AI right now, is that AI can be super helpful, but can also cause a lot of spam. And so that I don't know what the right answer is or the solution is, but using Elly's tool to kind of uncover and surface people that are a good fit is something that's super helpful. And that was really just a conversation like, hey, tell us about yourself. And you're able to speak with the AI tool, as opposed to kind of just going on based off of the resume, right? As I like to say, it's beyond the resume. It's a chance for people to hear you and see you. And I think that's a proper usage of AI. Now, using AI to kind of write your resume, that's totally fine. I don't see there's any harm in there. Obviously, make sure that you look through it and you know what's on your resume, because you look a little silly in the interview process if you don't know what's on there. But like, making sure you use AI, and I think this is with the entire world right now, is it's learning the boundaries of where AIs can be helpful and where it can be detrimental and get in the way.
Yeah, interesting. It's so hard to tell where things are going to be with AI and everything, and even just the next 2 years, it's going to look entirely different. Do you think with the job market, whether full-time or fractional, especially in the US, it's not a great market, I think, for applicants? Sometimes I'm on LinkedIn and just out of curiosity, I look at the jobs section and there's just countless applicants for every role, Do you see that getting better or worse over the next couple of years?
I mean, hopefully better. It's a good question. It is true. Like from my network, everyone's saying that they're getting inundated with applicants. And so it's a big challenge in the sense of like, also a lot of the applicants could be just AI spam. And so I know there's a lot of applicant tracking systems and a lot of AI tooling to kind of cut through that and try to kind of verify if these profiles are correct or real, right? Kind of cross-referencing it with like a LinkedIn profile or something like that. But right now there's a lot of market volatility. It could be due to multiple reasons. I'm not really that knowledgeable in the matter, but I do have one saying that I believe is always true, and there's always high demand for great talent. And so when we're hiring someone and they're coming across really excellent, there's always been other companies that are chasing after them. And so what I tell people in this kind of market, it's time to really position yourself with skill sets and talents that people really need to then really kind of continue to have that high demand. But it should, once we kind of figure out how we could use AI effectively and efficiently, I think that will create a lot of opportunity for growth as well, and a lot of hiring will be needed. It just will be kind of a slight change. It's my guess. I can't say I'm an expert in this field and predicting about how AI will affect economical impacts.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. For startups where things can be very fast moving, maybe sometimes unpredictable, how do you maintain quality of hire if the time to hire is being shortened by the C-suites or the founders?
Yeah, I actually, it's funny you say that, is that I don't think there's an inverse relationship between quality of hire and speed to hire. I actually think they're quite aligned, meaning long hiring processes don't typically mean better outcomes. It just means misalignment and indecision. And so the idea is that if you can, let's say you're an early stage startup and you're looking to hire and it's taking you 6 months to find someone, that's most likely because 5 months in or 3 months in, you're like, hey, you know what, we actually need this, or we actually need that. Usually early stage teams, they're growing quickly and everyone's wearing many hats. And so someone's like, I just need to hire someone. So the idea is that, you take a step back, you right, we have this kickoff document. Let's see, what do we want this person to succeed, to accomplish, right? How are we going to what are we looking for the past experience to showcase that they're going to be successful in this role? And then once you align on that and then test against those skill sets, then you're able to say, okay, look, this is what we need. This is what we need to hire for. The interview processes move much more quickly and you make much smarter and stronger hiring decisions as a result. And so clear alignment from the beginning means you're hiring better people at the end. And it usually takes much faster time when there's aligned hiring teams.
Interesting. Because myself, as a kind of layman with recruiting, I would have kind of assumed that there's that balance where the longer the time you're giving yourself to hire, probably the higher quality hire you're going to make. But that makes sense. So with your work as a fractional recruiter or fractional director of talent sourcing and that kind of thing, how much of that role is just hiring roles that the C-suite team have already decided they want to hire and you're just doing the work there, versus being more of a strategic partner where you're helping them figure out who they should be hiring and when? How much of a balance is there in what you're doing with your fractional work?
Yeah, it's a great question. So typically, let's say a client comes to me and says like, hey, we're looking to hire a director of sales, right? And that's kind of almost like hand waving. Like, what does a director of sales mean for your organization, right? Are you looking for someone experienced with B2B? Is it specifically in the SaaS industry? Are you looking for specific needs? And so that's where the skill set and expertise of a recruiter comes in. Whereas we could kind of say, hey, you need a director of sales. What are the challenges that you're facing? Here's the market, right? There's like one Venn diagram, and this is the market, and this is where we're at. And then this is what you're looking for. And you want to make sure there's overlap. You want to make sure there's as much overlap as possible to making sure that you could find great and qualified talent. And so the recruiters really, I believe that a lot of the reason why, the titles for recruiters have switched from recruiter to talent acquisition partner is because they're a true partner within the interview process and really helping guide hiring managers understand what they need and what they're looking for, and if they're reasonable. So for example, I remember speaking with a hiring manager on the tech side, and they're asking for someone with, let's say 10 years of experience in a specific technology that's only been around for 5 years. It's like, hey, you got to push back a little, right? It's like, you're not going to find that person. You're still finding a person. You're trying to hire someone for your team. You're not kind of ordering off of a menu, but we're going to do our best making sure that we find the best person that's the most relevant experience-wise, and that we're able to kind of test against their competencies to make sure they're successful in the role. And so there's a lot of guidance in that regard.
I laugh because my partner's a recruiter, and that we have lots of conversations similar to sort of tech experience and not having enough candidates that meet expectations. How do you push back when there's pressure from founding teams that are looking to scale quickly and they're so specific about their wants and their needs?
Yeah, it's a great question. So obviously, I've had that almost every single time I got roles like, hey, we need this person and we needed them as of yesterday. And so they have a need to hire them now. But then they have this huge laundry list of what they need, right? Like this person has to have, 15 years of experience using TypeScript, and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, okay, that seems a little outlandish. So the idea is it's like, hey, you want to take a step back, you want to create alignment. And the question is really, what are the challenges that you're trying to solve? And are you trying to solve for the challenges today? Or you want looking for something that's a little bit more long-term, right? At a tech startup, your challenges and your needs change pretty dynamically. And quite frankly, your challenges that you're having today is not going to be the same that you face within 6 months. And so really it's taking steps like, hey, let's say, for example, for a software engineer, Let's find someone with great computer science fundamentals who are able to then kind of plug in to say, hey, this is the challenge we have. They'll be able to solve that problem eloquently and beautifully, as opposed to saying, hey, how many years of experience do you have using TypeScript? So it's hiring for the growth of the organization and someone who could lead and really help make decision making, as opposed to like, hey, on you're ordering off the menu, let's add a little extra spice and all that kind of stuff.
What are the biggest mistakes or the most common mistakes you sometimes see startups making when they're starting to get a bit of traction and they have to make the first round of key hires in the company?
Yeah, great question. It's the same thing. They're moving quickly, right? They just don't know necessarily what they're specifically looking for. So say, hey, I'm wearing 5 different hats. I just need another person, right? I feel like I'm drowning. And so the idea is that it's like, okay, take a step back. You need to build a whole sales team. Let's find a sales manager first. I know it would be ideal to have an entire sales team as of today, but let's find a sales manager that can help you define exactly what you're looking for, having a subject matter expert. And so it's really taking a step back, truly defining the role, and really, having clear success criteria for that individual to then be able to then grow off of that as well. So alignment at the beginning, making sure there's a great candidate experience, and then being able to make smart hiring decisions quickly.
When you're helping startups build that recruitment engine, where are you usually starting? Is it the people, the process, the technology? What does that look like?
It's the first question I ask is like, hey, what do you need this person to solve? Right? It's even more basic than that, right? It's before the process, the people, the technology. It's like, hey, you want to hire this person. What do you need this person to solve? Right? It's like a mission. I read this book called Who in terms of hiring A players, and it really kind of illustrates the idea is that people sometimes like, hey, I just need a hire. They hire someone and their time is so much more busy because they hired the wrong person. So it's like, what do we need this person to accomplish? What are the skills and competencies that we need for this person to have to accomplish these things? And then how do we test against it? Once you have that codified, it goes pretty smoothly from there, right? Then it's creating the infrastructure of being able to post the job, take applicants, run them through the interview process, and speaking with people. But once you have that first step set up, everything kind of flows much more smoothly after that when you really have clear alignment of what you're looking for. And I know I keep mentioning alignment a lot. I know it sounds like a broken record, but it's really, if you go back to the fundamentals in hiring, that's really where you start off with, and then you kind of be able to have smooth sailing from there. Whereas if you don't have that figured out and you're constantly changing the needs or you're having moving goalposts for the recruiter, you're not setting yourself up for success.
There's been a couple of things you've said that strongly imply that a lot of the time when you go into companies, they are urgently trying to hire someone, and they don't have plenty of time and they really need this person today. How much of the time is that the case versus do companies sometimes bring you in actually at the right time where they have a few weeks to find the right hire, or is it like 100% totally manic whenever you enter?
Yeah, most of the, I would say 99% of the time is like that they needed the person as of yesterday, right? Startups, I think the biggest restraint for startups is that they're people constrained. And so the second that they have the approval for a headcount, they needed this person yesterday. That being said, we're not going to, just hire the first person off the street. You want to create a good structured interview process so you could hire someone who's going to be in the role for a long period of time. So I'd be part of the company long term. And so it's, hey, we need this person yesterday. And it's like, okay, well, let's set expectations. This is how long it typically takes to hire this role. Right. And so this is what you could reasonably expect when a person can start. But let's, take a step back from there. If we create a great process now and align at the beginning, hopefully we could do a little bit more quickly and have someone in seat to really help your team grow and succeed.
Yeah. And I'm sure that because of different personalities and things like that, sometimes when you go into a company and they want to hire yesterday, sometimes that's going to mean a different time scale to another person that says that, maybe one of them actually does need someone very urgently versus another person just thinks they do. How do you figure out how urgent it actually is when to the CEO or the founder, it always seems urgent?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, quite frankly, most of the time it's pretty self-apparent how urgent they need someone. So, for example, most recently when I was working with at Canopy, the hiring manager was like, "Hey, I'm owning every single aspect, and it's restraining my ability to turn on a certain responsibility. So I need this person on my team as soon as possible." And so the urgency is almost always legitimate. It's just that making sure that they're now solving for the right problems and they're hiring correctly, as opposed to saying like, "Hey, I just need someone here because I'm drowning." We want to be able to kind of get them to points like, "Hey, we're going to find you someone that's great, that's going to relieve you of these challenges, right? That of this bandwidth restraint that you're feeling right now, but it's going to take a little bit more time, and we're going to find you the best person. And long term, you're going to be really excited to have this person on your team." It's very rarely we're specifically for startups where they're like, "Yeah, take your time. Yeah, we'll hire this person when we need." It's like, "No, we need this person now."
Yeah. And when you're going into these startups where maybe a lot of the people are full-time, but you're working fractionally, potentially, and those hires that you're ultimately going to make could be make or break for the business. They're going to be super important. How do you build trust quickly with the key decision makers at the companies you're working with?
Yeah, great question. So I'd take a step back, is that being embedded in part of the team. So almost every type of engagement that I have, it's very rarely I'm just throwing them resumes and say, kind of deal with it yourself. It's me being part of the team and kind of forming that interview process, forming that interview structure, being part of debriefs and really understanding their needs. So that's how you really get, you build like a sense of trust, is that your presence is there, right? You're present there, you're part of mine, you're driving the interview process. And then you're also advising people, right? Because at the end of the day, they may be hiring for the first, their first time that they're hiring for their team, or they've hired 10 people on their team over the period of their career. My experience is that I've hired many more people, and I've experienced speaking with many more people. And so it's being able to kind of give them the sense of like, "Hey, this is what the market looks like, this is where it's at." It's becoming a subject matter expert, being able to kind of advise them on what they're looking for, and like, hey, is this reasonable, is this unreasonable, and then really being there to kind of help them, guide them to making the best decision for their team.
And usually when you go into the company fractionally, I would assume you're typically the first, well, actually, let me rephrase that. Are you typically the first recruiting hire, or are you sometimes the first HR hire in general?
Yeah, it's usually first. I mean, like small tech startups, they don't typically hire someone dedicated on HR until they hit like, I don't know, say 50 to 100 employees. And so usually they're looking for someone just to help them with hiring. And so when I go in there, it's right. And this is a great example of the difference between us and a traditional agency, where they kind of give you resumes and you kind of have to run with it. It's like, I'm embed part of your team. We set up the interview process. I speak to candidates. I present them to you. You're speaking with them. We're coordinating interviews. We're speaking how the conversations went. And then they come out to giving an offer. And it's like, okay, this is how you structure a benefits package to make it look like it's enticing or something that you want to accept, right? It's there being part of every aspect, where it's like, hey, let's talk to the candidate, make sure that they're excited about the role, make sure they understand what the role entails, making sure that like you have a true understanding what the company can offer. And so then you end up having a higher success rate in terms of people accepting offers, but also the process is just so much more pleasant for everyone, for the hiring manager and for the candidate, right? They're having the hand-holding on both sides, and we're making sure that goes smoothly because we're embedded in part of the team. We're able to do that.
And for the 99% of the time when you're going in and there's already a high sense of urgency, I would assume that isn't too fun, and you would have rather go into the company a little bit earlier when there was less urgency and the timing was right. When is the right timing to bring in someone fractional like yourself to an early stage startup?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I mean, I would say is that, let's say, usually what I've seen is that early stage startups usually engage with recruiters once they've done a round of funding, which unlocks hiring. but usually it could be before that when they know that they're closing on a round and that they're going to need hiring. And so having a recruiter being able to build processes and build up those processes in place really could go a long way in terms of hiring more quickly, right? As opposed to kind of building the ship while flying it. If you're able to build the ship beforehand and then start flying it more effectively, then you're able to do it more efficiently. And so that's usually the better times. But I enjoy a good challenge. I enjoy when a VP of finance or a CEO says, "Hey, we really need this person quickly and now." And it's like, "Okay, let's do it. Let's roll up my sleeves. Let's see what do you have so far and what do I have to build." And then also speaking with candidates and saying like, "Hey, let's figure this out together." It's really something that I personally enjoy, and that's why I'm in this space.
Yeah. Is that how you got into recruiting originally? Was it something that was kind of always interesting and a passion for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. Most people, there's no degree for recruiters, right? I think it's one of the few fields that people don't get a degree in recruiting, and most people kind of get introduced to it in funny different ways. But what really appealed to me about recruiting is that it's very people facing, and also in a certain sense, it's a happy part of the business where you're helping companies with growth. Right. And you're dealing with growth and you're helping someone land their dream job, and you're helping a company grow and have that bandwidth that they're looking for. So that's like one aspect that was really appealing to me. And then also you're really helping the company. So from a recruiter, and I really think this truly is that companies and startups that are ahead of the game realize there's a direct connection from recruiters to revenue. And that's because without the recruiter, you're not able to hire the person who's building the product, or you're not able to hire the person who's selling the product. And so understanding that relationship, as opposed to just like, this person's from, maybe let's say this is an HR person, or this is just an expense of the company. It's like, no, this person has a direct line towards revenue and the growth of the company, and making sure that they have the resources and the tools and investment in them to making sure that they're set up for success to help the company be set up for success really goes a long way.
Jana, I think you had one or two questions you were going to chime in with a minute ago.
Yes. I was going to ask if there's ever an instance where perhaps leadership might disagree with who they think the right hire is. How would you navigate that?
Yeah, great question. And it's actually pretty typical. So and that kind of goes back into like, in terms of just running a company in general, company culture, right? Where there are points where not everyone's going to agree, but the hiring manager has to then really make the final decision of what they're looking for and own that decision, right? And the person, let's say, that's interviewing or part of the interview loop, who might not necessarily agree with the hiring manager, they have to kind of disagree and commit, where it's like, hey, I said my piece. This is where I think it should go. And if the hiring manager believes strongly otherwise, and they're the one that's running the day-to-day and really understands the needs for the team, it's saying like, hey, I appreciate your input. I'm taking that input to consideration, but this is where I want to steer the decision or the team, and I really appreciate your input if you could help me kind of hire for that role. And so there's a point of kind of disagreeing and committing and making sure like, hey, I'm going to be all in and help you hire the person the way that you're going in, or really making sure that people understand. It's like, hey, where's the disagreement? What are you truly disagreeing upon? And is that something that we could solve for? The hardest thing is that if you're hiring for, let's say there's a hiring manager and a senior person on the team, and they have different needs or the different directions they want the team to go, and they're looking for two separate people in one person, that's not going to work. And so you want to get that alignment from the beginning. And so ideally that alignment comes from the hiring manager and say, hey, this is the direction that we're taking the team. I understand your needs. We're going to go in this direction. And then once you have them all on board, then you're able to hire more effectively. Right? It's all about that alignment. I'm very into alignment over communication and understanding the direction the company's going in. But ultimately, in the case of this like scenario, the hiring manager is owning the decision of who's going to be joining their team. And so you want them to be successful. You want them to be empowered to make the right decision. And so they have to be able to kind of drive those decisions as well. If you wait for a consensus, you don't get anywhere.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would think with recruiting, there must be some sort of 80-20 rule where the top 10, 20%, maybe even just the top 5% of applicants probably have quite a lot of options, and they're being headhunted by multiple companies, and they're doing fine for options, and they actually can pick and choose. Whereas with the bottom 80-90%, they're going to be fighting for a smaller percentage of roles, and that's why you see so many people struggling to get jobs. And of course, for the companies looking for that top 5% of talent, where they need to look great as employers, they need to be the company of choice. How should they do that? How can you help them be a great company that the top talent really want to work for?
Yeah, it's 100% focus on candidate experience, right? They're judging you as much as you're interviewing them. So every interaction that they have with the company really reflects the values and the culture of the company. So as I mentioned, right, there's always demand for great talent, and then there on the flip side, right, great talent has kind of like their choice of where they're going. And so focusing on candidate experience is really tremendous. Like I say that there's kind of like these 3 fundamentals of any recruiting team in order to be successful. And right, it's alignment, making sure the team's aligned on what they're looking for, right, and process. And then number 2 is candidate experience. And then number 3 is speed, being able to move quickly, because great talent's not going to just wait around for you. You have to go to the great talent. And so number 2 is the candidate experience, is that you want them to be able to understand what it's like to be at the company. And so that's what I mentioned also of embedded recruiting results, such as having myself embedded as part of the team, is where I could really see what the culture is, what's unique to your company, and then portray that over to the candidate. And so this is, I don't want to go too far off, but that's kind of the differentiator between traditional agencies, embedded, and also internal recruiters. I'd like to say embedded internal recruiters, they have the ability to kind of showcase the culture and the values of the company. And based off the interactions, the candidates are able to make a decision like, hey, is this a place that I want to be in long term? And during my career, I've had over a 90% offer acceptance ratio. And I really believe it's because of candidate experience, making sure that they feel heard, any questions that they have are asked, or any concerns that they have are asked. And then also the interview processes are structured in a way that we're not trying to get people. We're not trying to see like, how good are you at, writing a line of code under crazy pressure? It's like, let's understand who you are as a person. What are the skills and competencies you have? And let's see if there's a good fit for you here in the company.
Yeah, cool. Well, I think that's a lot of valuable and interesting stuff, especially for CEOs and founders to take away from this. Gianna, any closing comments or questions from you?
Nothing from me.
Sure. Well, Abe, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you or learn more about Elly?
So if you're looking to hire on your own, you don't need external recruiting instances. You can just go to elly.ai. We have all the tools that you need to hire effectively if you already have a recruiting team. But if you need that extra help and you need someone that's a hiring expert embedded part of your team, helping you find really great talent at effective and efficient solutions, then feel free to reach out to me at abe@elly.ai. I see it's popping up right here, which is very cool. We really meet hiring managers where they're at. If you just need tooling, we have that. If you need a little bit more hand-holding, we have that as well. And so just feel free to reach out. We're here to help you find the great talent that you so desperately need to really help unlock the company's growth and potential.
Fantastic. Well, thanks a lot for joining us. Thanks for the info and the insights and everything. And for the viewers and listeners, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you on the next one.
It's great speaking with you all.